All right, today we're going to dive deep into the strategy behind what might be the most critical piece of Project Octagon, Node 2. We're going to look at how this one part of a massive global network is engineered to go from just a cost center to a seriously powerful profit engine.
So to really get this, just picture Project Octagon as a huge global fleet of ships. You've got your industrial nodes, like the one in Uganda. They're the muscle. They're the ones producing the power. Then you have testing nodes in places like Arizona, kind of like scouts, gathering data. But Node 2, way up in Canada, that's the Admiral's flagship. It's the central intelligence, the brain that runs the entire show.
And this quote from its leader, CTO Ash Aly, pretty much sums it up perfectly. Node 2's main job isn't to create any physical product. Nope, its job is to be the guardian of the network's logic. It makes sure that the software running on every single piece of equipment is perfect, totally secure, and always getting better. But here's the thing. This advanced command center wasn't always the plan. Its backstory is actually one of a really fast strategic change-up, and you kind of need to know that to understand what it is today.
What's wild here is just how quickly they pivoted. In late 2025, the idea was for Node 2 to just be a simple backup system in Uganda. But then the leaders realized they needed data from totally different climates, so they moved the node to Canada, gave it a major promotion, and by early 2026, it was officially the network's brain.
So what does this brain of the network actually do every day? Well, its whole mission really comes down to 3 essential jobs that are absolutely critical for the entire operation.
First off, it's the only node that's allowed to push out software updates. That makes sure every machine in the world is running the exact same secure code. Second, it's the intelligence hub, pulling in data from all over the globe. And third, it's the teacher. It runs the academy that trains all the people who will operate this complex network.
Now, this is how it learns, and it's a really cool concept called federated learning. Basically, it takes performance data from the scorching 115-degree heat in Arizona and mashes it up with data from the freezing Canadian winters. This lets the AI make the entire system smarter and tougher, all without ever having to move the original raw data from where it was collected.
Okay, this part right here is where the strategy is just genius. Because Node 2 wasn't designed to be just a necessary expense. No way. It was built from the ground up to be a super scalable, high-margin profit engine.
And the difference in the business models is just night and day. An industrial node in Uganda, for example, it brings in a lot of revenue, sure, but it also has really high costs to sell physical things like electricity. Node 2 is the total opposite. It sells intellectual property, intelligence, data, things you can copy and sell over and over again for almost nothing.
So how does it actually make money? Well, through a whole bunch of different products. You've got these pricey one-time software licenses, you have annual subscriptions for mobile gear, and it even makes money from tuition for its training academy. And they're already planning for future stuff, like a whole healthcare layer.
And this one number right here just explains the whole model perfectly. For every $200,000 software suite that gets sold anywhere on Earth, Node 2 gets a check for $80,000 in royalties. That cash goes right back into funding its research and development, which is what keeps the brain of the network so sharp.
Okay, let's talk about the money. Let's look at the projections and see how this high-tech brain goes from an investment that's burning cash to an absolute profit machine.
And this begs the obvious question, right? Can a node that doesn't produce a single physical thing, that doesn't sell 1 kilowatt of power, can it actually be profitable? Well, the numbers say, yeah, it can.
The projections are honestly staggering. I mean, look at this dramatic J-curve. It kicks off with a loss of about 85 grand in its first year. But then, just 2 years later, by 2028, it's projected to pull in over $10.6 million in pure profit. And get this, the net margin just skyrockets from negative 9.8% to over 58%.
So how on earth is that possible? The answer is something the project calls the software flywheel. See, because Node 2 sells ideas, intellectual property, its revenue grows like crazy with every new industrial node that comes online anywhere. But its own cost to develop that IP, they stay pretty low. More muscle needs more brain power, and Node 2 gets paid for it every time.
And this growth is all mapped out in 3 very clear stages. 2026 is the year of investment, just making sure everything works. Then, in 2027, that software flywheel really starts to spin, and the profits just explode as the network grows. And finally, 2028 kicks off the data arbitrage era, when it starts to cash in on its most valuable asset. And this right here, this is the end game. By 2028, after collecting years of data from all over the world, Node 2 will be sitting on something nobody else has, a global data set showing how AI hardware actually performs in extreme real-world conditions. And that kind of information is pure gold to insurance companies and hardware makers.
So really, it all boils down to this. The whole network runs on two engines working together. You have the revenue engine, that's the industrial nodes out there doing the heavy lifting, making sales. And then you have the profit engine, Node 2, which takes all the intelligence from that work and just spins it into pure, scalable profit.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. As our world gets filled with more and more intelligent machines, a model like this really forces us to ask, where is the real value? Is it in the muscle that does the work, or is it in the mind that architects the whole thing?